Hey, what's up, everybody? This is the Synth Summit Show, episode 4. I'm the host, Flux, of fluxwithit.com and themachinewarehouse.com, and soon to be released sonicexpansion.com. We've also got Upright here with us. And
How's it going?
Upright is a music producer who happens to use a bunch of wires and cables and all kinds of ridiculousness with his hip-hop beats. Some people call it modular. So what we're going to talk about today is basically getting into modular synths in a actual usable musical way in our productions, in music productions, not just sound design. So what I wanted to do is just spend a little bit of time. We're going to talk about samplers. We're going to talk about, tracking out and output modules, lots of different things on that level. So what's up, Bryce?
How's it going, man?
First thing that I want to dive into is your basic workflow, right? For people that aren't aware, it's very West Coasty hip hop. You like to use a lot of swing. You like that kind of offbeat hip hop feel.
Right.
Your primary sequencer, like that you're putting everything together in, be it DAW or whatever. What's your product of choice for that environment?
I would say right now it's mainly Ableton, but really any kind of any sequencer. But as far as drums, yeah, they have to be. I have to have that loose. It can't be too restrictive. So, but as far as sequencing melodies, even anything Eurorack, the SQ1, the Korg SQ1 is
Sure.
good. Yeah. So. Yeah.
So a lot of your stuff, you use a lot of modular in your productions, and it's been in there for a good long while now. What are some of the techniques that you're using? Like, how are you, like when you want to use the modular, are you primarily saying, okay, well, I'm just going to use it for tones, or I'm going to use it for basses, or are you just playing with it and say, oh, that's kind of an interesting sound, and I'm going to sample that, or what's your method?
Yeah, it's kind of like, with the modular synth, you just get in there and play and come up with something that you kind of fits your inspiration for that moment, and roll with it. So that's kind of how it is when I get into modular. It's just creating and designing a melody from the ground up, and just kind of letting the modular synth take me where it will, in a sense. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
You were so I guess a lot of the stuff that you were doing that recently that I was hearing, you had kind of not even full loops, but like, so are you chopping it a lot or what?
I haven't been chopping so much, and that was something I was gonna kind of talk to you about, as far as like what you do with some of the like sampling in your Eurorack. But no, I haven't been chopping anything. I just pretty much like I've been using rings lately, and that it, just because of the decays and stuff like that, you can get really tight percussive stuff. Or
Now you've got the Make Noise Mysterion as well, and
exactly, yeah.
Do you have Elements as well?
I do. Elements, Mysteron, and yeah.
Between those three, are you kind of finding that you're liking different textures from each one and using them for their own kind of thing, or what?
Yeah, the Mysteron, I think Mysteron gets a lot of flack because it's really it really kind of has a distinct sound, but that's what I like about it. It can't really get too various. It has a specific sound. But that's what makes it unique to me. But yeah, Elements, Mysteron, and Rings, they all have their own little flavor, so it's cool. I don't find, in my opinion, they don't really, well, maybe overlap a little bit, but they're definitely I like them. I like all three of them. So
unique enough of an instrument that you
exactly.
can. Yeah. But, so recently I got a Electron Rhythm in my setup.
Right.
And of course, there's a learning process that's involved in that. When I say recently, I literally mean this week. So I've been kind of learning it, and I was curious because before I got the Tempest, I was kind of looking between that, the Tempest, the Rhythm, the Tansbar,
Right.
and maybe like a Vermona DRM MK3. Like I was kind of looking at lots of different analog sources for drums, and but I like drum machines, like as actual, like I like actual drum machines. I love modular drums too, but I wanted some physical drum machines for some of the work that I was doing, and I was kind of looking at them like, well, how much overlap in sound is there going to be after actually having them, and using both of them? They're so completely different, and their sound, you know, while they can both do analog drums, the analog drums that they do, in my opinion, don't really sound that similar. So you can actually get a pretty consistently different sound and different vibe out of each thing. And that's kind of how I feel about when I see similar Eurorack modules like that. Like for instance, like Braids and Orgon Accumulator, you could look at both of those and you could say, well, they're both, you know, kind of macro oscillators and wavetable oscillators and drum oscillators. They do like multiple things all in one, but they're very different modules, you know? And even though they're similar, they have very different, they've got a different feel, different tone, texture, all that kind of stuff. When I'm recording this stuff into a beat, basically what I'm finding myself doing is, I started out when I was originally using them, I was doing a lot more mono synth work with my modular, but I found myself kind of like recording lines and then chopping it up later, putting it into stuff. And now what I'm finding myself doing more is coming up with melodies, sequences, or rhythms in the modular as I'm making the beat. So like I might lay down drums. I prefer to use Machine Studio. So I'll use Machine as like my kind of overall environment, and I've got Ableton Live as well, Push 2, which I'm starting again. That's one of those things where it's like I kind of default to what I'm most comfortable with. Whatever I work fastest on is what I'm going to work on. Ableton Live right now is showing me kind of like much more opportunity, but
the learning curve,
getting ideas into the box first, I'm using Machine right now. And so like I'll lay down drums and get the general idea, the general rhythm down and everything, but then what I'll do is I'll move to the modular and I'll just start sampling sequences at particular BPMs and then kind of chop them, and I'll kind of chop them up and get different vibes out of them. So like I might do like a double time sequence on it. I might do a halftime sequence. So like I'll get a couple of different things, but I'll do different clock divisions of those same patches or whatever.
Gotcha.
Put them all on like 16 pads chopped up differently, and then start to work with them as samples later on.
Got it.
You know?
Okay. Yeah.
Do you find yourself like long tracking anything out, like actually taking into live and actually doing, you know, over the course of a track, or is it more individual sampling?
It's more individual sampling, definitely. Like what I'll do is I'll just open a track in live and let the modular play in while I'm tweaking stuff, and then I'll go back and, you know, find, you know, little loops and that I liked in that in that whole performance, and then use those loops in context with the song. So I'll record maybe, you know, 4 or 5 minutes of me just tweaking out, and then go back and make adjustments and, you know, cut those into little loops and stuff like that. So that's what I'm doing.
What I think I'm going to do is I'm on your SoundCloud, and I know most of this stuff is fairly older.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to do is just to kind of give people an idea of some of the stuff that you're doing, like maybe AstroTurf.
Yeah, and AstroTurf will be good, sure.
So
and then there's
let me know if this feeds back real quick. We're gonna find out.
Okay.
Hopefully not. Does that sound okay? Like you don't hear any?
I can't hear anything.
Well, no. I just wanted to see if my voice was gonna. Okay.
No, you're good. Yeah.
So I'm gonna play this for a second. Okay. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought maybe I'd play slicker this year.
Okay, yeah, that's Euro rack too. Yeah.
So I'm just trying to give examples.
Yeah.
Slick at this shit, slick at this shit. Uptown, the course down, recognize the sound. Slick at this shit, slicker. Word up, I'm slick at this shit, mad slicker. Slick at this shit, slick at this shit. Uptown, the course down, recognize the.
So you're using modular on these tracks, and
Yeah.
kind of describe kind of like what the process was for when you're working on something like that.
Yeah. Basically just you know, start messing around with the modular and then coming up with different sequences, different melodies, sampling those into Ableton. In some cases chopping them up, but most cases not chopping them, but just sampling them as loops, and then, you know, building drums around that, and then adding maybe little elements here and there from other synthesizers and stuff like that. So real pretty basic, you know.
The other guys on Cold Busted, you know,
Right.
I do a lot of work with Cold Busted. Do they use modular as well, or are you kind of like a lone wolf out there? Or?
Yeah, I think I'm a lone wolf right now, as far as on Cold Busted, you know, but yeah, not too many people doing hip hop based modular stuff, at least that I know of. You know, there are a few, like, you know, yourself, and there's my buddy Shiro. He goes by Voltage Controller. He's doing some beat driven stuff, like down tempo stuff. But yeah,
Sure. Yeah. That's kind of one of the things that I'm noticing is that when I look at where modular is sitting in a lot of music, I think there's certain styles that are really getting more play from the modular community as a whole. But I think, like, I see modular being used in hip hop out there, but it's not. It's usually kind of pushed to the back, and it's like it's there, but it's like don't look over here. Don't worry about this. So yeah, one of the things that I've been doing a lot is I like to use my Eurorack as an effects processor for samples. So as you know, where I started was mostly like from sampling vinyl and putting it into the MPC or whatever, and then, you know, I would go from there. But I was always trying to find interesting ways to affect those samples, and back then I didn't have quite as much rack gear and that sort of thing, so I was limited to, like, you know, some filtering, some basic filtering. I've got like the Akai MFC 42 analog filter over here, but like aside from that, there wasn't a ton. So when I started building this up, one of the main goals of it was, aside from just a traditional really cool modular synth, was I wanted to do a lot of effecting. I'm noticing that the companies out there that are doing effects, like it's just now starting to really blossom. You know what I mean? Like, you're just now starting to see a lot more of the digital effects. So like there's been a few companies that had a few things like the ZDSP, and which really isn't even all that old, you know. And
that is that ZDSP. I'm drawing a blank. That's what I thought. The tip top, right?
Yeah,
and you can load algorithms into that one, right?
Yeah, it's got the little cards, and you can put different filters and delays and reverbs and that kind of thing in there, which is pretty cool.
Right.
I haven't pulled the trigger on one of those yet. I keep considering it, but but yeah, like with companies like Mutable, with Audio Damage, you know, you're starting to see a lot more strictly effect-driven modules coming to light. You know, one of the first things I did when I started building mine was to put a spring reverb in it, because I love that classic, you know, thunder sound of, you know,
Definitely
something through it and then slapping your spring reverb, that kind of stuff. But what I'm really starting to like now is using things like clouds. So like I'll send drums into clouds and then, you know, keep the size really small, so you get these pseudo granular chopped up bits, and you can kind of get live glitching of your drums. I use a lot of plugins like the Finger from Native Instruments on Reactor, so you can get that chopped up sound. But with this, it's like you can kind of get a little less predictability and a little bit more hands-on at the same time. Like it sounds like, you know, two opposing forces, but at the same time they work together. You know, you can get this sending control voltage in and then also manipulating it by hand at the same time. You can get these really cool glitch effects that work really well for hip hop and work really well for like breakcore and those sorts of styles. I've been listening to a lot of Venetian snares lately. I can't lie. So I love kind of incorporating other people's styles into my own music, like sampling not just records, but sampling style, you know what I mean? Like, and not biting style, but just kind of using influences in flipped ways. So, you know, whereas I might hear, I might be listening to somebody like Aphex Twin or Venetian Snares or somebody like using these glitch drums in, they glitched them to the point where it's kind of melodic, like the pitching of the glitches kind of are used in melodic ways, and just kind of flip that on its head for a hip hop vibe.
And that's what I wanted to ask you a question, actually.
Sure.
You know, as a beat driven producer using Modular, like I notice, you know, I love a lot of modular music, from droned stuff, you know, drone stuff that's just drones and wild just modulation and stuff. But I notice, like, you know, as a beat driven producer, how do you find that you kind of approach, what's your workflow pretty much?
So a lot of the times, like, I'm going to start with, I prefer to start with drums before anything. That's kind of my thing. Like, I love finding a tempo of a loop and then throwing a drum loop behind it, and then things kind of click and fall into place. But more often than not, I'm starting with skeleton drums first. And so, like, I'll finger drum before I do anything. So first thing I do is, like, I'll figure out what tempo my body is working at that day.
Gotcha.
And the way I tend to do that is I'll tap tempo for a little bit. Like, I'll just kind of like not even with drums laid out or anything, like, I'll just kind of like finger drum on the table for a minute, and just kind of like, you know, get vibes. And once I do that, like, I figure out what tempo my body's working at for that day. And then I'll tap tempo on, and then I'll find some rough estimate of drum sounds that work, because not all drums, like, depending on decay length, room ambience, tune of the drums, not all drums work for every tempo. You know, and so, like, if I've got these long ringing drums and I'm trying to do something really fast, it just gets so mushy that you can't really, you know, define the rhythm very well. So, like, I try to find drums that I feel like have decays and everything that work with me. And a lot of times that means I'll just quickly, you know, I'm pretty quick about sculpting that stuff. But the actual drum samples themselves, you know, are going to dictate that. And again, like, a lot of the times it will be samples. So, like, even though I have a lot of analog drum machines, the skeleton drums are often going to be samples to begin with, because it's what I work fastest on. So, like, I'll dive right to machine, and I'll have all these samples that I've made on my other drum machines, and I'll just work from that. And once I have a skeleton laid down, that's when I'll take the modular or the samples or whatever I'm working with and start sending them into the modular and start playing with it until I feel like something's getting in the tempo range that I like on the mod. Like, I don't necessarily like the modular being 100% synced to my computer. So I don't necessarily, like, I want it to be close to time. But not necessarily on time, because
so you don't send the clock. Usually you won't send a clock from.
A lot of times I'll send it, but then I'll affect the clock too, you know. So like I'll use various different modules, or even so BeatStep Pro, any one of the brutes, like the micro brute or mini brute. I use those as basically my MIDI translator. Hex inverter, MIDI to CV. That's cool because it can give me the pulse outs with divisions you can quickly select.
Wow.
But what I'll do, so like I'll send clocks into the modular, but then a lot of the times I'll do like silly things. Like I'll send the clock into it, but then I'll send the clock through a delay. Or I'll send the clock through like a resonant filter, and just kind of like get it so that it's wonky. You know what I mean? Like, so that it's not a clean signal. It's not correct.
That's dope, man.
When you do that, like you'll get, so like if you send like a broken clock into something like the TikTok from Animodule, you can have the TikTok doing musical divisions, and then it's seeing every.
Gotcha.
I think it's seeing every. Is it 2 or 3 pulses, and then it's extrapolating that into its divisions. Well, if there's like a broken click in there every once in a while, it'll kind of like make it do its own little fill. You know what I mean? So,
gotcha.
And I use that for like a half predictable, half unpredictable kind of way, and get these funky rhythms out of it and start sampling those up.
Right.
So I'm in the realm of musicality as far as rhythm, but
that's one of the things. I had a guy asking me yesterday about syncing up your computer with your modular. And I think that's one of the appeals of modular is just that whole element of discovery, you know, and just being able to kind of experiment and do crazy things, you know. And yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting that you do that, because that's the whole experimental side of modular.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite things about it is using Logic modules for audio and vice versa.
Okay, so that's something I really want to get into. Logic modules. I haven't really messed with Logic too much, you know.
Yeah, like I use the triple exclusive OR more for audio than I do for actually using it as like a strict Logic module. Like I use it as a distortion and that kind of thing more often than not. But like things like the Logic Object and flip flops and things like that, you could do really interesting things with your clock that way. Sending it, I'll send it clock from the Evaton Technologies CLX, which is essentially it's 2 square wave LFOs, and then they've got and an exclusive OR, and you can get these cool syncopated rhythms and stuff out of it. But what I'll do is I'll send a traditional clock from my DAW into like one of the flip flops, and then I'll also combine that with the CLX, and I'll get like these weird like stuttering rhythms and patterns out of it that way.
Wow.
Now I used to have the Make Noise Phonogene, which I really liked. I didn't keep it, not because I didn't like it, but more just because like I was working on other projects and I couldn't justify keeping it in the rack while I needed the money for other things. But so what I really liked about that was that you can do live sampling. So it's kind of like turning the whole modular thing on its head when using it with a hip hop beat thing, because in the hip hop sense, a lot of the times you're sampling the modular into the beat. Whereas with this, what I was doing is I was going the opposite way. So I was making beats on machine and then sending them into the phonogene and then slicing up the beat in the phonogene and doing it that way, and then taking the whole project and putting it back into the DAW that way.
Wow.
Which was really awesome, because the phonogene, you can do drum mangling, like just mind-boggling stuff with it. I mean, that thing was really, really fun. I'm sure I'll get another one eventually, just because I liked it that much. But for now, I'm using the clouds kind of in a similar way, and I've been considering getting the the Scooper from Roland. But I haven't actually seen one in person or used one in person, so I'm kind of hesitant as to whether or not it'll do what I want. But so for me, a lot of this stuff is about like the musicality of modular. It doesn't have to, I love bug music as much as anybody else.
Yeah,
like I like the clicks, pops, and weirdness
So do
of
I.
Modular. Like I
Yeah,
enjoy
I do too.
but that's not who I'm always catering to, and that's not who I want my music to go to. Like I listen to a lot of music that is not what I produce. So if I listen back to like a lot of my favorite hip hop artists, you know, if I listen to like Kool Keith in an interview, a lot of the times he talks about some of the artists that he listens to, and they're not always the artists that are going to mesh with what his fan base is listening to.
Right.
But I think that works because that's when you're pulling in fresh ideas from other people.
Exactly. And you know, you mentioned bug music and just some of the stuff that goes on in Modular. It's like Richard Devine. He's a good example of bringing that weird kind of bug, crazy modulation stuff into a beat-driven, context. Because he does both. He'll do, really just weird stuff, and then he has the beat-driven stuff that's heavily modulated and crazy, but it just works. So
yeah, or just experimental for the sake of being experimental. Meaning, for instance, using him as an example, I was listening to a track. I don't know if it was just for demo purposes or what, but it was like some glitch hip hop thing that he was doing, and it sounded really cool. But the process to get to that song, technically speaking, you could get there way easier. Like, you know what I mean? Like you could get that same, very, very close to that same sound in a much easier fashion.
Right.
What is it nearly as inspiring or interesting to do?
Exactly.
Not, you know what I mean? Like, so when you're doing that, it's like you say, like the art of discovery leads to inspiration. You know what I mean? And
definitely.
So for me, when I'm tracking, a lot of the times, I try not to be when I'm making music, I should say, I try not to be focused on sound quality as much as inspiration. And what I mean by that is, so if I'm using my Modular and I'm like, well, I need to send it through this pedal and this and that, and technically the impedance isn't really matched, but it's going to give me this cool effect. So what? Like if it's going to get me what I want, then that's what I'm going to do. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm sound designing, I'm thinking about, oh, I need to have this properly level matched with this, and I need to, sculpt this way. Can't have too many lows here. I got to do this just right. If I'm music making, I'm in a totally different mindset. I'm like, make it sound cool and make it interest me and have fun doing it. If I'm not having fun doing it, then there really wasn't much of a point to me sampling that. Like there wasn't any point to me playing with that, because the whole point of making music is, some people will say music is organized sound, right? But to me, it's more like organized emotion. It's like the whole point of the music that I'm playing to you, it should elicit some sort of emotion, should take you into some sort of mental state. You know what I mean?
Right.
Aggressive, be it ambient, whatever it is, like it should elicit some sort of emotion in someone,
Right.
And more paramount to me than the signal chain.
Right. Yeah. I wanted to say, to kind of correlate the, as a someone that samples vinyl, coming from that era, and I know you do the same. I think the modular synth is, in a sense, the synthesized version of kind of, digging in the crates, if you will, because there's just this huge, vast realm of possibilities, and that's what happens when you start sampling vinyl. You have all kinds of different sound sources to choose from and different things that can inspire you. And that's what the modular is to me. It's like just a endless source of inspiration in a synthesized, fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got a lot of records, and I'm a vinyl addict. But one thing that I used to always find myself doing was like finding old Buchla records and just like a lot of old electronic music from late 50s, early 60s, and just like I would love that stuff. And now I find that I have the ability to kind of create similar music and then use that source in my music, you know, without having to sample someone else's work, which
Right.
is a slippery slope in a way, because the type of hip hop that I personally prefer to create is boom bap. And part of that is, like, if you lose the dirty edge of it, it just ends up coming off wrong. Like it's like if you're telling me you want to play, bluegrass, but all you're going to use is synths, like somebody's going to look at you really, really, like, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. But
you know what, to kind of jump on that before you move on to something else, keeping things dirty, how are you doing that?
Man, that's why I love my modular.
Right.
Like, I'm an addict for dirt. Like, I'm an addict for, like, I love distortions, and I love overdrives, and I love clipping, and I just love broken sound, period. Right. And to me, like, I love, if I go back and listen to, like, I'll go back to Cool Keith because he's one of my favorites. But I'll go back to, like, Ultramagnetic MCs. if you listen to the drums if you go back and listen to early Wu-Tang and you listen to the vocals even, things were done in such a kind of not intentional poor quality, but it ended up creating character to it. You know what I mean? It's like,
definitely,
you know, if a model has, like, this gritty look to them, you know, it's a different, it could be the same person, but if they shave and they're all clean, you're going to think two different ways about that person. You know what I mean?
Right.
About the music, you could create the same song, but if you create it recorded pristine and clean versus dirty and raw, it has two different personalities, you know? And a lot of, like, the later Wu-Tang stuff, even though I really like that stuff, you can hear the fault of the high quality, the high fidelity. Like, sometimes when you're using studio musicians as opposed to vinyl, you lose something. Like, there's something they can be playing the exact same music in the exact same way. Timing can be great, everything, but you lose something because of the way that you did it. Yeah. And so when I'm making things, I'm very perceptive of that fact. I don't want to lose that sound. So what I'll do is, a lot of the times if I'm using analog drums, for instance, Tempest is perfect for it. Like, I'll tell you that right now. Tempest run through a character module it makes analog drums sound filthy and boom bap-ish in ways that it blow my mind.
Do you still have that character module?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Right here.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but what I like to do is, I'll take the sounds, and then a lot of the times I'll either run them through effects in the modular, like the distortion and compression on the mute and hot glue is perfect for that. Wow. Because you can smack things down and get that New York style parallel compression going, and touch a distortion that's a little bit ugly as hell. And, you know, Optodist is another one that I love. The Trana module from Animodule, which is really ultra usable for this, because it's not necessarily a distortion primed to be a distortion, meaning that the distortion that you get out of it is from using the speaker load. So it doesn't go completely uncontrollable. It just distorts like a speaker would, you know? So
Gotcha.
I'll run things through that and then back into my machine. So, like, I'll be running loops and stuff kind of in a circle, like, and sync sampling things back. A lot of the times after I'm done that, I'll then play everything out of my system, and I'll mic up my studio monitors. And it just kind of, like, it's like a little thing, but when you mic up your actual monitors, it actually, like, it just pulls something out of it and adds
some character. Yep.
Yeah, it adds character and realness to it. And it kind of also, like, because of the mics that you're using and all, you kind of, it kind of EQs it in a way. It puts everything into a certain spectrum, which is fun. And then I'll take that sample of me running things out through my monitors, and I'll layer it back in with the original mix, you know, correcting for phase and everything. But once you get it in there, it can add these layers that are really awesome. So in my beats, a lot of the times what I'll do is there's lots of change ups. Like, I'd say on average, no 4 bars in any of my music is the same pattern.
Okay.
And so what I'll do is, like, I'll have for like, you could have like 4 bars of, you know, this distorted loop that's sampled directly from the modular, and then the next 4 bar loops could be similar with maybe just a few other hits, but it'll be the sampled version coming out of the monitors, you know? And it just gives all these different vibes and things like that that are happening, and then I kind of compress them together and, you know, make them sound like they're kind of in the same space. But
Gotcha.
you know, that's just a way of using modular, not strictly worrying about, you know, okay, well, I'm you know, getting bleeps and bloops and I'm, you know, or I'm doing this. I like to use it as an effects rack for drums, you know.
Right. Okay.
And I've been building up like an actual dedicated modular drum machine. I just built the Thomas Henry Mega Percussion Synth, which is really cool. The Orgon Accumulator, this is the DIY version. And I'm using that. I love using that for a snare drum because it's probably my favorite snare out of my whole system. The Synthrotech DSM, which does these awesome FM kick drums. And same with the Neuron. The Neuron I like to use for kicks and hi-hats and upper percussion all at once. So I'll send it different modulations in the same pattern that will change it from being a kick to a snare to a hi-hat, you know, to a percussion.
Right.
And you know, the other day I was doing that. I posted something on Instagram where I had like everything from the BeatStep Pro all going into one Neuron and then out, you know, to the mix, and it's just you can
just modulate between it to get different sounds. So you'll modulate
exactly. And you know what? That's one of those things where even though it's a digital module, I can't seem to get that kind of vibe from anything in my computer, you know. Right. And that's even with like, I've got excellent modular software, you know, between System 63 and blocks and that kind of stuff.
Right.
It's something about those modulations right on there, and then sampling that is just ridiculously fun.
Yep.
What are you using as your final output for your modular?
I'm using the UJack from IntelliJo.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll run everything to that, and then it, you know, brings it back to line level, and then into my interface. Yeah.
What you got any like pros and cons on that thing, or?
No, it's been great. I don't have any gripes about it at all. Yeah. What are you using as an output?
Admittedly, I don't use a single output. I use many, and I haven't decided on which one I like more. Like I keep bouncing between different output modules and different mixers and things like that, because they each tend to do different things. So sometimes I'll use the Trana module as a final output just because I like the distortion at the end.
And it brings it to line level. It'll bring it to line.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, you can attenuate it down, you know.
Okay.
And when I do that, like, so everything goes in. The final output goes to this passive multiple that I have up here, right?
Okay.
And then I have it. I switch it to a 1/4 inch up here, and then it goes into a Mackie mixer here, and then, you know, into my DAW. But so what I'll do is, like, sometimes I'll do the Trana module and I'll just attenuate down and then just give it just a tiny boost of that grit from the speaker. Because there's 3 different outputs on it. There's a line level output, there's a mix level output, which is without the distortion, and then there's the speaker output, and that's with the distortion.
Wow.
Sometimes I'll just use the Mixman module, which is just a traditional mixer, and then it's got a lot of hidden cool features on it. Like it can be an offset, it can be a multiple, you know, it's got a lot of cool things. It can do inversion, which is the inversion on it's really handy because sometimes phase can be a problem inside the modular. So I'll use that sometimes. Hot glue is a great final output module also.
Wow. Okay.
I'll send to that. And then I have the Synthrotech MST stereo output module. Now I use that when I'm doing more pan things. So if I want to have like swirling effects going through and I need the stereo, then I'll do that. Like usually I'll have at least two outputs from my modular going into my DAW.
Right.
So meaning I'll have like a mono and then a stereo pair, you know, and then I'll send it that way. But I mean, I'm not dead set on any one module. I've been debating on whether or not I want to do something like ADAC has the XLR output modules and all, but I haven't really had too many gripes with noise floor or anything like that. I know some people nitpick about where the noise floor levels are and what modules are going to be best for that kind of thing. I haven't really run into too many problems with that.
Right.
And I find that as long as you're gain staging properly, it's not too big of an issue. Power seems to be more of a factor on that than the output modules themselves. Because the cabling run isn't long, so it's not like it really needs to be balanced. And it's just not that big of a deal. Like when I'm only going, less than 5 feet or whatever. But if you're using a switching power supply and maybe it's lopsided weighted, you know what I mean, as far as positive and negative and whatnot, and you're getting some chatter between digital modules and analog ones, that kind of thing.
Right.
I was having an issue with a few different modules that were doing that. The U scale was kind of being problematic for me with that, and what else? I used to have the micro step, and the LEDs on that, when that was lit, it would just cause haywire on my switching power supplies. But and I don't necessarily think that that's a flaw in the design of the module. I just think it was more like how my system was weighted at the time, and I was using the micro Zeus power supplies on those. When I switched it over to linear, I wasn't having any issues or anything like that. Yeah. So like I've got a linear power supply over here, and I'm using 2 micro Zeus in this one, which I actually have another linear power supply. I just haven't put it together yet.
The 2 micro Zeus on that, they're working all right for you?
Yeah. And honestly, like the power, like I'm nowhere near that power supply on there, because a lot of these modules here are actually mixers. And like the power draw in this modular is not that high. But I like the idea of keeping my like giving it a lot of headroom as far as power. I've noticed that things just work way better when you have a lot of space in your setup. To me, output modules, like I don't know, I'd like to try a couple other ones too.
I mean, I before I got the U-Jack, I was running straight out of my amp. And to me, just the dynamic range, and it was so hot that it would clip everything. So that's the reason why I got it.
Out of your guitar amp?
No, I was run out of just the amp Linux. It would be Linux.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, so just out of the VCA.
I got you. Yeah. The links. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The other thing that I'm noticing when I'm tracking the modular is I have to be kind of careful as far as what I'm feeding in at the same time. So like if I'm feeding everything into like one mixer and then out, I tend to not get the same, like it tends to not sound quite the same when I'm sampling it in. So like what I would prefer to do is I like to split things up and then send multiple channels on my main mixer. Even if I've got multiple mixers in here and I can mix it all down properly in here, it tends to be better if I do it on the big
in
mixer,
the Mackie. Okay.
Yeah.
Plus, so you'll send individual.
Plus you've got individual EQ on it and that kind of thing. I'll lightly apply EQ on that mixer just to kind of sculpt things a little bit. I don't like the idea of having too many frequencies like getting in the way in my songs.
Gotcha.
That's always an easy way to handle that.
Okay,
Are you using I know you've got the analog 4, but you've also got the expert sleeper stuff, right?
Yeah, I have expert sleepers for
with
Ableton. With the Motu. So I'll run expert sleepers inside of Live to send like LFOs, even pitch, even volts per octave from Silent Way, their software.
Yeah, that's it.
And then I'll use the A4 for pitch, for volts per octave and sequencing. So I can use the A4 if necessary, just to do complete modular stuff if I need to. I can use Silent Way to do complete, volts per octave sequencing everything, and then I can also use the Korg SQ1. So I have those 3 options. And
Do
then
you have a preference between those?
it just depends on what kind of mood I'm in, really. I think that the A4 and Silent Way are a little bit more tedious. Not that it's really that tedious, but it's just a different workflow. The SQ1, I mean, you just plug it in and it's ready to go. But as far as Silent Way, you have to kind of you're working inside of Ableton, so you're sequencing from Ableton, and then you have to add the elements that you want from Silent Way, and then route it to the Motu, and then run the cable. Whereas so that's a little bit more setup. Not that it's that difficult, but it is a little bit more. And then the A4, you have to set up the parameters that you want to use as far as CV. So it just requires a little bit more time. But it just depends, because all 3 have different options. The SQ1 is a real simple approach to kind of getting things going.
Now, I know that you've been playing with like blocks and Reactor and all. Are you intermingling like oscillators from the digital realm with your from the software realm, I should say, with your modular, and then back and forth, or are you do you interpatch or no?
I haven't. Well, the only thing I have been doing from blocks is LFOs and envelopes and stuff like that. I haven't been sending any volts per octave, because just that conversion between blocks and Eurorack is still a little wonky. I'm looking for someone to come up with a good solution to make that really a solid go-between. But right now, sending gates and LFOs, envelopes, and stuff like that is pretty reliable. But pitch from blocks is a little wonky right now, for me at least.
Sure.
So
do you still use a lot of apps and stuff along with the modular? Or?
I'll use different synthesizers and stuff like that. Like one of the apps I'm really enjoying right now is Elastic Drums. Because I'm looking to get something kind of like you with the rhythm or the Tempest, but right now that's kind of like my analog drum machine.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's a lot of fun too.
Yeah. I still even with different drum setups and all, I still tend to really like the freedom of the interpatching and all with modular drums. But what I found is it feels like it's very limited as far as really good drum sequencers in Eurorack form. Now, I mean, and that's to say that like the BeatStep Pro technically isn't Eurorack form. It's sensible for octave and gate, but it's not Eurorack. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm really looking to try to find one that I like, that does everything that I really want.
Right.
So I know Sound Machines has a pretty cool looking sequencer for drums. Then there's Circadian Rhythms. That looks cool.
A lot of guys are using that.
Yet. I still really want to find one that does proper real-time recording of drum patterns, because I'm a finger drummer. So, I want to be able to finger drum stuff and record that, and also be able to properly manipulate swing per pattern.
Gotcha.
Which even Tempest doesn't do. I mean, which blows my mind that you can't do swing per pattern. But
BeatStep Pro does do that, though?
Yeah, swing per note, I should say, or swing per pad, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, I like to have like my hi-hats on one swing and like kick and snare on another, that kind of thing.
Right. BeatStep Pro does that, though?
No. BeatStep Pro has a global swing.
Global swing.
I don't believe that you can, but it also has random and probability and stuff. So we were talking before the show about how much he needs to get a BeatStep Pro.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull the trigger on that.
Yeah, so I mean, to me, it's like I haven't seen a Eurorack drum sequencer that does drum sequencing as well as something like a dedicated drum machine, like a MPC or something like that. You know what I mean? Which I'm still waiting for. I feel like in the past year, I've seen a fairly decent push towards drums in Eurorack. Like I feel like you're seeing much more of that. Drum Dakota, you know, the hex inverter drums, Jomox is in Eurorack now, and you know, there's a lot of really, really great drum modules out there now. And what I want to see is I want to see the sequencing kind of fit the bill. I want to see the sequencing, you know, really be robust in that way. But that's not an easy process either. Drum sequencers, to do them as complex as something like an MPC sequencer or a machine sequencer or whatever, that's a serious undertaking. I mean, like,
it is,
you know,
and then to have that,
a lot bigger brains than I do to do that, you know,
and then to have that real-time recording in there, to where you could do that live input and, you know, get the exact feel that you want. How would you want somebody to approach something like that? I mean, you would use your BeatStep or machine to get that.
I would be fine with, you know what I would actually like, because it's Eurorack, so you would want a smaller footprint. I would be fine with a mini USB jack on it, or a USB jack on it, and then I could plug in like really like any MIDI, any USB class compliant MIDI controller, like one of these or something, you know, and let me do my finger drumming that way. Obviously, it should also have gate and, you know, gate inputs so that you can trigger from whatever else you want to use that's modular. But I'd be perfectly fine if I had a small module that I could jack USB cable in, boom, plug it into one of these guys, and, you know, do my patterns on that, you know, and if I don't want to use that, then I can just do step sequencing and, you know, that sort of thing from the module, you know. But if I want to do real time, then yeah, I would expect it to be something that's, you know, you would need something separate. Like, I don't want the module to be as big as like the Verbose keyboard in order to do that. But if the Verbose keyboard had that kind of stuff built in, then that'd be awesome. But I don't necessarily need it to be a standalone giant unit like this. It could be, you know, just a unit with all that good stuff in it, you know? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, and maybe that stuff's out there. If it's out there, throw it in the comment section on YouTube, or hit me up on Facebook, whatever. I'm willing to try whatever. I just haven't seen anything that really gets me that full drum machine experience while still using modular drums. So I'm still looking for that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, other than that, I mean, as far as using the modular in actual music production that's not just, you know, generative or anything like that, I'm tending to do it more as usually not more than 4-bar samples. Like, and even 4 bars is kind of pushing it. Usually it's going to be probably like 2-bar rhythmic samples, and then arranging in different ways that way. I'll sometimes throw a drone underneath of a track just to kind of give ambience to whatever I'm doing. But that doesn't even necessarily have to be modular. I mean, I'll do that on the Pro 12 sometimes, because it's kind of cool for doing like these evolving textures. But long drawn out tracks in modular, I don't tend to put into my music, just because, again, I'm using a lot of broken clocks and things like that. And when you're doing that, those wonky rhythms over time, yeah, it can work, but I get OCD and want to, like, that hit can't be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Working with smaller 2-bar loops, you can kind of have a little bit more control, you know?
No, I agree. Yeah, definitely.
Are you doing any effects on your modular, like sending any of your samples as effects? Are you finding anything that works that way?
I haven't been doing much effects in the modular. I think rings is going to be a little bit of that, but no.
You had a catastrophic failure.
Yeah, there we go. I typically run for effects. I'll run everything to Guitar Rig.
Yeah,
and,
I use Guitar Rig a lot as well. Yeah,
right. I was going to get the H9 Eventide, and then
thinking the same thing.
Yeah, and then I started playing around with Guitar Rig, and I felt like, I'll wait on the H9, and so I just been doing everything with Guitar Rig.
Let me show you. I'll bring this up so that people can see it. So this is something I'm going to be reviewing in the very near future, but I'll be fair warned, I have to learn it, and it's a bit of a beast.
Yeah.
This is the VPED, and so this is from Mode Machines, and this is the only PC that I have in my studio now because I'm a Mac guy. So, but when I say that, I mean it literally. I mean, you've got a full computer inside of this bad boy. That's HDMI, 4 USB, Ethernet, you know, and then on this side you've got your audio interface. You know, I mean and these are all like switch inputs over here and expression pedal inputs. So you can actually run Guitar Rig on this, and there's a whole bunch of software that already comes with it that I'm kind of diving into. Like I'm cautiously diving into it right now. I will say a couple of things. The screen on it's really awesome. It is not a touch screen. There is a mouse that you can edit with, or you can edit with the foot controllers. And there's also a mobile app, but I haven't tried the mobile app just yet. So between that and I have a suite of guitar pedals and Chaos pads and things that I'll run the modular through as well. But I did just kind of toy with sending the modular into the VPED and running, what did I have? I think I had Rough Rider running on it, and a few other things, a few other distortion plugins.
So you're able to get Rough Rider on it?
Yeah, and it's working really well as far as getting like just really wild distortions and some cool reverbs and all. The parameter editing I still need to get comfortable on because again, I'm a hands-on guy. I want to be able to like grab and twist things and that sort of thing. So, but I kind of bring that up to bring up this. Let me grab it. Oh, diving underneath of the roads here. Hang on. Okay. I have the Guitar Rig rig control, which is a USB controller for Guitar Rig. And what I'm planning on doing is I want to use the VPED along with this and send this into there, and hopefully I'll be able to control Guitar Rig in a very, very intuitive way and keep it all kind of hardware. Like it's like I won't have any other PC running or anything. It'll all just be hardware. So that should be really interesting, because the Eventide H9 I looked at and it looks really great, but it's kind of similar in the fact that there's not a lot of parameters that you can get to right from the front of it. So I'm like, is that any better than using software at that point? You know, I mean, sure, it's great if you're traveling and you're on stage and you don't want to bring a computer, but for us that are just in a lab and we want to use stuff that we can just grab quick, you know, that's when I start looking at Eventide, the time factor and that kind of stuff, the Strymon pedals. What are some of the other ones? Anything by EHX and Way Huge. Like I kind of modified, if it's in here somewhere, I guess it's over here. Let me unplug it. So I modified the Way Huge Aquapus.
Right.
And I put control voltage into it, and I got a switch that I can switch between using the knob or using the control voltage to affect it. And the way I did that was with let me see if I can open it up and show you. It's the VAC pack from Synthotech, which is really awesome. So I don't know if you can see it or not. No, I guess I tucked it all in there a little too sexy. But anyway, the VAC pack from Synthotech will let you do that, and I have one right here actually. Yeah, here it is. So what it basically is it's just a little kit that you can buy for guitar pedals or anything that you want to add control voltage to.
Oh wow, okay.
That uses a what is it, like a resistive attenuator or whatever?
Potentiometer.
Yeah. So, and yeah, it's basically, it's really, really simple. Let me show you this thing. I want to pull it out so that people can actually see what I'm talking about. Because this is the thing, is like little kits like this, I don't feel like people, they don't get enough attention. You know, this is like really cool stuff that, you know, is a solution to a legitimate issue that us modular guys, you know, should all be aware of. You know, so the circuit board is tiny. I mean, that's it.
Okay.
You know, it's just like a couple little capacitors, Vactrol, whatever. You know, it's very tiny, and it takes all of 10 minutes to solder it up. And I mean, the parts list is tiny. Let me show you this. If I can get it open. I know this is riveting viewership, but whatever. So, I mean, that's all that it is. It's super simple, you know, and it's not expensive at all. But so all you have to do is basically you break the, you know, the trace from, you know, the pot, runs basically in line with it, and you're good to go.
And it gives you CD control over pretty much any pot,
Yeah. So I did mine over the rate control on it, because I like that kind of tape effect.
Right.
You know, so it basically turns an analog delay pedal into a kind of analog delay with LFO and kind of warbly sound. It's really fun, and you can run it. The Vactrols in them are pretty responsive, so you can get them up pretty fast. You know, I mean, it's still a Vactrol, so it still has that
like delay kind of sound.
Yeah. But I mean, that's fine. I mean,
that's what you want.
If you don't like Vactrols, then I probably don't like you. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. But that's the cool thing about all the modular gear to me, is like how we can make everything interact. You know,
right?
Like, there's always a way around whatever. You know, be it getting MIDI into there, or you know, whatever it is that you're trying to do, you're gonna find a way to do it in the modular world. So that's why I try to use it as much as possible, and that's why I see such a big push towards people moving away from actual drum machines. Like I see in the past like 6 months, I know of at least like 6 different people who have really nice drum machine collections and boutique drum machines, and have gotten rid of them specifically for modular drums.
Right. Yep.
You know?
Yeah, that's saying a lot. That is saying a lot.
So, anything that you're excited about before we end the show?
I'm definitely excited about NAMM. I can say that.
Yeah. Let's do a quick shout out for that too. So we're both going to be at NAMM. I'll be at NAMM. Upright's going to be at NAMM. B-Boy Tech Report's going to be at NAMM. Willie from the Machine Warehouse better be there. He's my roommate.
Better be there.
Joe from soundsandgear.com is going to be there. Rod from Prime Designs is going to be there, which made this. Look at this, man. This is so fresh. I gotta show it. He made, and look, it's like a bourbon label. Yeah.
Oh wow.
So if you guys want awesome shirts done up or anything like that, he's the guy to go to. Prime Designs.
MX Audio, I think, will be there as well.
Yeah. So MSX Audio should be there. You know, basically just a lot of really, really good people. We're all going to meet up. I know we're definitely going to be hitting up some Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles, so I'm really looking forward to that. My appetite for fried chicken is unparalleled. So, you know. Yeah, so if anybody wants to reach out, like I'd really like to have like a get together with everybody, and you know, we can maybe meet up somewhere. Like hit me up on Facebook, whatever, and we'll figure out where we're all gonna meet up at and have a good time at. But yeah, it should be a really good time at NAMM. I know that there's gonna be a lot of awesome modular gear shown this year, so I'm super excited for that.
Yeah, I'm excited. Really excited about NAMM. Actually expecting a lot of cool stuff. So
yeah. I mean, both modular and non-modular. I've heard a lot of inside info that I'm excited about, and I'm hoping, you know, is all true and comes to fruition. So it's about time. But and the other great thing is that now I think we're going to be seeing a lot more coverage on modular from not just small channels like myself and, you know, whatnot, but I think the past 3 years you've seen it grow so fast, and the coverage has been there. I think you're going to probably start seeing a lot more of the bigger companies getting involved as well, and it just bodes well for everybody, really. But yeah, so NAMM is where it's at, and right around NAMM, I'll be opening up the new website, Sonic Expansion. So got a lot of new products for that as well. A lot of sound design work went into it. A lot of beautiful graphic work went into it. So some cool stuff coming.
Yeah.
And Upright promised me that he's going to upload some new stuff to his SoundCloud, because he's been putting it all on the labels and everything, and not putting it up on his own individual SoundCloud. So I'm going to make him do that. Yeah. So all good.
All good, man. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Listen, we'll say goodbye, and you know, check us out next week. We got some really cool guests lined up for upcoming shows. So I'm really looking forward to it. This is Flux with it, and Upright. Peace.
Take care. Peace.